Hello, and thanks for joining me. Well, this drill press is done. I'm really pleased with it, but there's a few things I need to do to it to make it really usable and user-friendly. One of them is to put a XY mill table on it. I've got a Vevor mill table like I put on my square column drill press. I'm going to put one on here, and but when I put that on there, it's going to use up too much space underneath my chuck because this is a fixed table. It's a bench model drill press. I don't want to use up that capacity, and I've got some adjustment here, but the table doesn't move, so I don't want to use that capacity up underneath my chuck. Well, this drill press has got a riser block in it already, so I'm going to increase the height of that riser block to accommodate the mill table. So that's what I got these steel plates cut for, and they'll go right there. So I got to fabricate those, and that's going to involve making some longer bolts. I couldn't find any 10-inch 7/16 bolts. And there's a few other odds and ends. Let me show you a little closer what I'm talking about. One thing I ended up doing here is putting a link belt on. That's a big plus. Very smooth running, no more motor bounce. And then some of the viewers commented on that galvanized electrical box I had on there. I made another, cut down that 4x4 box I had, painted it black. So, I'm going to do a couple other things here too. Some of this I may do off camera. This lever right here, I'd like to have a little bit more leverage on that, so I'm going to make a longer lever, put a ball on the end of it. It takes quite a bit of effort to lock that down enough to where when you're drilling it doesn't slide up. So I'm going to put a longer lever on that. Something else is kind of weird about this drill press. Let me get a different camera angle here. There's a bearing right here, right in there. Okay, there's a distance here, and then when you go up, it goes through the quill tube, the shaft goes through this quill tube. There's no bearing in here, and then it goes up, and it goes through a bearing in this pulley here. But it just slides through it. And it's got a couple of keyways in the shaft right here that drive the chuck. Well, that's got to be able to slip in there so there's a clearance. Well, that's the only thing supporting this you wouldn't call it a quill, chuck drive, whatever. So you've got that bearing up there with a little bit of play. Probably got, a 30-second play, maybe a little bit more. No bearing anywhere else in there until you get right here. So what I noticed the other day, I was using this thing, and I was using it with a spotting drill, and I was drilling a rough casting, and that little spotting drill was walking around on the casting. So in other words, that lateral play right there is moving. There's no play in this bearing except torsional, whatever, I don't know what you'd call that. There's no actual movement in that bearing except axial, I guess, I don't know. Anyway, and the flexing of this long shaft. So what I plan on doing, if my camera angle's right, is possibly putting a bearing right here. But the drawback to that is this is an oddball size. Because when you put it together, the bearing that they use down here has to slide over this and then be a tight fit near the chuck down here. So this is a slightly undersized, and it doesn't match metric or inch size. I got a metric bearing here. I guess I could bore that out and drive it over it and make a bearing fit around that thing right there. But I don't know what I'm going to do. But somehow right in there I'm going to stabilize that so that it stabilizes the chuck down here. So that's going to be a big project. So this is going to be a multi-part video because we've got a lot to do. Anyway, first thing we're going to do is get started on that riser right there. This riser assembly right there. And I've already got this steel plates already cut to size. I got to do some milling to kind of notch them together. Let me show you a drawing. Here's what I got to make. Looking down, it's like a tube. Those are the 4 plates right there. And I got to mill these clearances here, and that's where the 4 bolts bolt the top half of the drill press to the bottom half. Anyway, that's what we're going to get started milling right now. One, 2, 5. Well, there it is. By all my calculations, it should work, but something bothers me. The clearance here for the bolts is a lot deeper on this side than it is over here, and I think I accounted for that when I had it all apart and I was looking at it, took all the measurements. But I'm going to take this back apart and mill that out just a little bit more right there. It won't hurt a thing, and I'd hate to get this all welded together and find out my bolts wouldn't have clearance going through here. 'Cause that's what that is. That's clearance for the bolts that holds all this together. So, take it apart and do a little more milling. Okay, this is hot rolled steel. It was not very flat to begin with, but I'm assembling it on my table saw because I want it as square as possible. Ground the mill scale off here, beveled it very slightly so we get some good penetration on our MIG weld, our TIG weld. And then I'll grind that smooth, and I'm thinking maybe I'll get it sandblasted before I paint it green so that it'll look kind of like the drill press. So it'll look like cast iron. Okay, I managed to get one surface here true. I was trying to move around on the vise because there's so much sticking out above the vise. Plus, it was clamped on the sides, so it was trying to square up to the jaws rather than the base. So really, and I managed to get one good surface on it, and it's reasonably square. But really what I need to do is clamp this down to the table and then clamp it in the vise. Like in the middle right here, mill this side and mill this side, and then take the clamp off and mill what's left in the middle. I don't know if I need to need to hold that down somewhere, some way, so that it's registered on the bottom and not on the sides. Because when I clamp it, it's liable to move. If it's any out of square on the bottom, it's liable to shift this way or that way. I guess I could watch it and see if it shifts. But I'll put a dial indicator on it and see if it moves when I tighten it. Okay, here's my plan. I got paper under there, and it's holding. All four paper is holding. When I tighten it, if none of the paper gets loose, they all four did. A little bit. What about that? Okay. Try a different approach here. All very tight right now. Still tight. I like it. I'll just mill just a little bit at a time and hope for the best. I found out that climb cutting just a little bit works better. Tends to move things around just a little bit less. Nothing's moved yet. Taking a pretty big cut right there. Okay, 3/1000 more. Yeah, I like it. A couple days from now, I'll take that to the sandblaster. Tell them to take a sandblaster to it, take all the grinding marks and the mill scale off. I'll also put a piece of plywood on the top to cover the machine surfaces. That's going to work good. Okay, let's make some 10-inch bolts. 10-inch long bolts. I've got these cut to 11-inch. 1 inch of it will be the head of the bolt, and I've already faced off each end. Right now I'm going to cut a chamfer on the end, kind of make it look nice. I got the compound set in reverse at about 30 degrees. I'm just going to cut a chamfer right there. Okay, on this end is going to be the end I turned down, and I think I'll cut a really large chamfer on that and then put a center in there. It'll be clear as to the reason why in a minute. Okay, there's 175. Now that should be 7/16 in there if I can measure it. .463. It's a little bit over, but that's okay. I can sneak up on that when I turn the diameter down. That'll work. Okay, I've turned 2 of these bolts down. I still got to thread them. I got 2 more to go. And believe it or not, the best tool I've found is a GTN3 insert on a cutoff and grooving tool. Fairly common insert, and it's designed to cut laterally, and it seems to work the best, so that's what I'm using. Good. Okay, we got our 4 bolts here. Cut the diameter, cut the length. Now we got to thread that much of it. To do that, I'm going to put the head of the bolt in the bore. And I've got to put an undercut right there to end my threads. And I think it needs to be about 20 thousandths. Maybe 25. I think I'll go ahead and do all of them like that. Okay, I'm cutting 7/16 by 14 threads. Let's give this a try. That's it. Ah, perfect. Okay, you're going to think I'm crazy. Maybe not. But I don't like this two-handle thing. Maybe it's because I'm used to the 3 handles on a regular drill press, but I'm going to put a hub on there and put 3 handles on it with knobs on it, just like a regular drill press. They'll be at a slight angle. So the next step is to cut an angle on that and then drill 3 holes in it and put a hole in it and mount it on that. And I'm going to do it all. I'm going to do everything on this drill press without altering the drill press itself. That way I can put it back all original. I don't want to destroy the historic value of the drill press. Okay, I'm going to cut a bevel on the edge of this piece of steel here and drill holes for my handles. To get that, I measured with my really crude protractor there, measured the angle on my other drill press. And right here, you'll notice, wipe that off. I got some bluing right there and a scribe mark. Zoom in on that. I did that a long time ago, but I've used it several times. And right here, I'm 20 degrees from zero, 25 degrees rather. So right here is showing 90, but so I can go 20 degrees from 90. 10, 20, 25 degrees, right? Boy. That scale right there is really worn on there. Probably close enough. Somewhere along the line my scales got damaged right there. But I think that's close enough. Slight change of direction here. I want to create a hub, 2.5 inch hub. Two and a half inch. Close enough. I think I'm going to make that slightly less of an angle. Well, what I planned on doing was boring a hole that diameter most of the way through, about like that. Putting a screw right there and holding it in the end, and then a set screw that partially intersected with that. Not really sure yet. But I may have screwed up because I'm going to have a hard time holding that to bore that hole. We'll just have to go try. Okay, now we got a long boring process. Boring this out to 1.552. 1.552. 50-50 chance, and I always get the feed direction wrong. $150. Okay, according to my calculations, I need excuse me, need to go 11.5 thousandths. So I'll go 10 and remeasure. Definitely don't want to go over. Like about 1/1000th. I'm going to go one more cut and not make any change. Some call it a spring pass. Hopefully that's not too much. Wow. That's it. Perfect. It's got some burrs on there from the where the handle was going through. I think that'll be a perfect fit. Cool. Cowabunga. I like it. Okay, the trick is getting a pin through that to line up with that hole right there. And it doesn't have to be that same diameter, it just needs to be to one side of it, to this side. I think I can do it. Probably not the most accurate method, but probably good enough. Now when I put a pin in there, I'll make it very slightly below the surface, 3/8 pin, and I'll drill, or I've got a 7/16 bolt that will go in there and push against that pin and hold that in there. Should work out good. That's my accurate machinist level. I think that's close enough. I'm going to put a roll pin right there so when I drill, it won't move. Otherwise it would slide in the vise, I think. Yeah, let's see how this works out. Okay, I'll shorten that bolt so that it's just about touching that. What this is doing, the head of that, or the end of that bolt is pressing on that pin and pulling it, pushing it inward. Perfect. It's locked solid on there. Okay, I got to cut the other end down to 3/8, the other end of these handles. And I've got it marked what I need to cut it down to, the length. The ball's got a 1/2 inch depth. I got 62 thousandths will make it 3/8. Oh, perfect. Oh, I like that. I like that way better. I know it's not original, but I really like that. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Thanks for joining me, and be sure and subscribe and ring that bell.